I'm Caitlin and welcome to the Lit Review. Today we are doing my mid-month wrap-up for February. This is something I'm starting this year on my channel where I'm just splitting up my wrap-up so I can spend a little bit more time talking through things with you. And then all of the delicious stats you could ever want will be on my final wrap-up at the end of the month, which realistically is coming to you in March. This one will tide you over in the meantime. You also need to know that I have a 2-box system on this channel. There are boxes at my feet. And there's one box that is a maybe box for the books that I'm just not sure if I want to keep or not. And then there's the no box for the ones I'm very sure I do not want to keep. And that's something I'll be doing throughout any of these reviews, is letting you know whether I'd like to keep these books or whether or not they could be going. And then when both of those boxes fill up, I will be doing an unhaul or a talk through with you when the time comes. That time is very close, so soon-ish, soon TM. Let's get into the books I read. I read 4 books in the first half of February. We're gonna call it from like February 1st to Valentine's Day. Let's go with Valentine's Day, the 14th. So halfway through the month, and I managed to read 4 books. So far, so good. Except for most of them aren't from my Litland video, so we're in trouble. But the first book I read was a reread, and that is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. I'm not going to overly summarize this book for you, except to say that this is book 2 in the ACOTAR series, where our main character, Feyre, picks up where she left off from book 1. I mean, I know this book is all over book 2. I still don't fully know how to summarize something like this without giving you massive spoilers. It follows Feyre's continuing relationships with people like Rysand and Tamlin in really complex and unexpected ways. Book 2 is totally better, and yeah, soup is important. That's all I really have to say here. This maintains its 5-star rating for me. I just love these books. I'm an unabashed fan. I'm slowly rereading them. I know that Court of Silver Flame comes out this month, but I am not currently allowed to buy books, so who knows when I'll get to that. So I have plenty of time to catch up. So kind of making my slow and merry way through this reread, but I still really love it. I do think with these books that the first time you read Sarah J. Maas is just the best time you read Sarah J. Maas. So I'm maintaining its 5-star rating, but I think I liked it more the first time around. Still feel all the feels for these characters, though. I'm not saying a ton because I feel like the internet has already said its massive amount of thoughts and feels on this book. Just know that I'm one of those people. And I really love it. Next, I read a book that I'll have to put the cover up here because I read it in ebook form. That is Love Only Once by Johanna Lindsey. Now, this is the book for February's Historical Hellions book club, so that's why I read that one. Really loving that book club experience so far. The first 2 picks have been really great. I had the weirdest sense of deja vu reading this book. I felt like I had read it before, but I don't have records of it on Goodreads or any other type of recording system I have for the books I've read, but everything felt super familiar, so I'm not actually sure if this is a reread or not for me, but I did enjoy it. I gave it 3 stars. You know on this channel, if you've been here for more than a minute, that I have had a emotional-laden journey with Madam Lindsey here. Some of her books I really enjoy, and some of them I'm just... They're not for me. This one was kind of somewhere in the middle. Like, I really enjoyed the banter and the smut, but you know, it features one of my least favorite tropes as a central plot device. And it's kind of miscommunication, but it's also just 2 very stubborn people unwilling to talk to one another, and that is not my kink. Sorry about it. So that's why it's getting a 3-star. I think it's actually one of her better books. It's part of the Mallory family saga. You are following the ravishing beauty Regina, aka Reggie, as she has been out for at least 1 season and has just not found anybody that meets her uncle's approval, because she's been raised by her 4 Mallory uncles, who are each like very unique character types. There are moments, I'm not gonna lie to you, there are moments, especially early on, where I'm like, Cool, you're really close to your uncles in a way that's a little concerning. Maybe that was just me. Maybe I'm reading too much into that. But the way she like idealizes them in an almost romantic way made me a little uncomfortable, which is also part of why it's getting a 3-star and not something higher. Our main character is Nicholas Eden, and he is a rogue who is hardcore decided never to marry. That is just not his thing. But he is a absolute rake who is known for seducing married women, innocent women, just he likes the ladies. And so he accidentally kidnaps Reggie, and in the process of kidnapping her, they get found out, and they have to marry or else she will be ruined. And their relationship is really interesting and challenging at times. I do think that there's moments where Reggie just feels very immature, and then there are times where she feels really smart and wise, which I guess is accurate for somebody in her time and position. I couldn't decide whether or not I liked the main character, also part of the reason I gave it 3 stars. In general, I think it's one of the better Johanna Lindsey books I have read on my journey through that author's backlog. Since it was a library book, I'm not keeping it, obviously, but I'm not going to buy it either, so I think it was like a pleasant read, but it doesn't need to stay permanently in my life. Then I read this beautiful graphic novel, Crowded Volume 2, Glitter Dystopia. So this is obviously the second book in a series. This is like a trade bind-up. And this beautiful, beautiful beastie is written by Christopher Sebela, and the other creative folk involved in creating this are Rose Stein, Ted Brandt, Triana Farrell, and Cardinal Ray. So I gave this a 4-star. I really love this comic book series. The premise of this series is that in the not too distant future, there's an app for everything, including something called Reaper, where you can basically put a hit out on anybody, and people can contribute to that campaign. They can like crowdfund your doom, and basically the rules are, if you survive beyond the length of that campaign, you're free. Nobody can take you down. So in response to things like Reaper, there's a Defender app where you can hire bodyguards and protectors. So Charlie, it turns out, has one of the biggest Reaper campaigns ever put out against her, and she says she's not sure why, but we slowly discover, some potential reasons for why that might be, because she's kind of obnoxious. You see that in both big ways and small, but she hires Vita, who used to be Secret Service on the Defender app, and the whole series is like their journey, both trying to survive and trying to discover who's really after Charlie. There's a lot of other complications here. There is like great representation in terms of LGBTQIA+. There's a little bit of romance in here. I'm obsessed with this series, and like the art style is super cool, bright colors. There is a lot of violence in here, so if that's not your thing, don't. Trigger warnings or content warnings for violence, but I really, really love this series. I don't think the 3rd bind-up has been produced or released, because this is still an ongoing comic book series. This actually came out for the first time in 2020. So I'm anxiously awaiting more content from these fine folks. I really want to know what happens. We left on a major cliffhanger, and I gotta know. And then the last book I read in that February 1st to February 14th time span was Pet by Akwaeke Emezi, and I gave this 4 stars. This was a really interesting read, and in my original Litland video, I called this a middle grade book, and I would like to correct that because it is a young adult book, so my apologies for misattributing that. While I won't be rereading anything to fix things in Litland, I have too much stuff on my plate. I will still count this for my miscellaneous, but I just wanted to make sure I corrected my mistakes. So I would define this as a really fantastic example of magical realism done right. I am not always the biggest fan of magical realism. It sometimes can be really alienating for me as a reader. This was really creative and interesting, and it's a very quick read. I did take my time with this over the span of a couple of days because I really just wanted to soak it in. Pet's world is, again, kind of that not too distant future where a lot of wrongs of our current society have been righted. At least that's what most people think. They refer to perpetrators of like racism, assault, violence as monsters from the past. So they just like, they talk about some of the civic leaders in the community of Lucille as being angels who defeated the monsters. And you can kind of read between the lines and see that those folks were activists. And I thought that was a really cool and interesting dynamic, and kind of give you that sense of the idealized future without removing us too far from the clues of the past. So I thought that was really cool. And Jam, our main character, is a trans girl. I really liked how Akwaeke Emezi, as a non-binary author, envisioned this future space. How they just defined this space as, of course this girl is trans, and this is how easy it was for her to be accepted within this new society, how easy it was for her to get the things she needs, because we've moved beyond that as a concern. And I just kind of like liked that envisioning of the future. Jam prefers to communicate in ASL or sign language, and Jam can vocalize, but prefers to use sign language. And so there are several folks, her parents, her best friend, and some of her best friend's family members who like also just sign with her and, you know, make it really easy. And it just like the support and the empathy and the compassion that's just like built into this future world space was really cool to read about, and I like that vision of the future. Actual summary of this book is that Jam, by accident, kind of awakens this painting, and it is a kind of disturbing mishmash of a creature. Like, it has no face and horns and goat's feet. It looks like what she thinks a monster should look like. But its name is Pet, and Pet tells Jam that it's there to hunt a monster. And Jam is really resistant to this because she's like, no, I've been told my whole life that the monsters are gone. And Pet convinces her that like, no, I'm here. That means there's a monster that I have to hunt. So it was just this really emotional, thought-provoking idea of like how to identify the monsters and like what should be done with them, what could be done with them. And like how even in perfect places there can still be problems, and like even perfect people can still, you know, hold a lot of trauma. This was really good. This was really powerful, really beautifully written. This was a really cool read. Happy to have done so. I'm going to be keeping this because it was like just such a unique experience. So those are the first 4 books I read in February. I'm pleased to have gotten through that many, even if only 2 of them are related to my Litland. I'm like halfway through Well of Ascension, so I'm hoping to be able to check that off too. But I also have like 5 other books to read, so I have no idea how we're gonna do by the end of the month. We'll see together. But regardless, thank you for spending time with me. I hope you have a fantastic reading day. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more of me or this channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!